Welcome to Thriller Recaps. Today, I am explaining the movie, in time, explaining every scene as it happens. Watch till the end, and please like, share and subscribe if you enjoy this. Salas woke up, then headed down after getting dressed for work at the town's factory. He wished his mom, Rachel, a happy 50th birthday, even though she didn't look more than 25, due to all humans being genetically engineered to stop aging at 25. But they die 1 year later, unless they get more time. On his way to work, Rachel gave him 30 minutes of her time so he could buy lunch at work. Even though she only had 3 days, she told him to meet her at the bus stop because after she paid up the loans they owed, she wouldn't have long. He promised to be there. He was approached by Mia, a little girl, who begged him for 5 minutes to settle her bills, which he gave to her. After work, he headed to the bar that night to take his friend Borel home, but he saw a man named Henry Hamilton, with time as long as a century. Will saw Henry being watched by a guy, so he went to tell him to leave because he would be killed. But Henry didn't listen, and just then Fortis and his gang, the Minutemen, who happened to be time thieves, showed up. Fortis tried to collect Henry's time from him by fighting him for it. Henry went to the toilet to puke since he was drunk, so Will used that opportunity to help him run out of the place. They were chased by Fortis's men, but Will got them a place to hide. One of Fortis's men knew Will. Will promised to get him out of there in the morning. Henry asked Will his real age, which Will told him was 28. Henry revealed that he was 105. He told Will that it had become painful to live, and that's why he wanted to be killed. Because everyone has to die, it's the real order of things. He revealed that the people of New Greenwich, who are the rich people who get to live forever, are hoarding their time. They constantly increase prices to keep the poor dying because if everyone lived, where would they keep them? Henry also told Will that the time hoarded by the rich is more than enough for everyone, and people can die when it's their time to die. He asked Will what he would do with his time if he had it. Will answered that he wouldn't waste it. While Will was asleep, Henry transferred all his time to him, saving 5 minutes for himself. Will woke up to find Henry missing. He saw the time Henry had given him and a message Henry had written on the glass window. He saw Henry preparing to jump from a bridge, so he went after him. But it was too late because Henry died before he got there. Will met with Borel, showing him the time Henry had given him. Borel warned him that he wouldn't be safe in Dayton with so much time on him. Will gave Borel 10 years for their 10 years of friendship. Will told him that he wanted to take his mom to New Greenwich. That evening, Rachel paid up their loan and headed to the bus stop to take the bus. She realized that the bus fare had been increased. She tried to bargain with the driver to gain entrance into the bus, saying her son would pay the remaining money at the bus stop, but he didn't agree, telling her that it was the new policy. So Rachel had to make a 2-hour walk, which would be impossible since she only had 1 hour and a half in her time. Rachel begged for help from people she met on her way to the bus stop, but she was ignored. Will, who was waiting for his mom at the bus stop, didn't see her drop from the bus, so he realized that something must have happened. He went running to find her, and when they saw each other from a distance, they ran towards each other. But his mother timed out and died in his arms with less than a second before he could transfer time to her and save her life. Will cried from his loss. Raymond Leon, the leader of the police-like timekeepers, and his deputies Yeager and Kors pulled Henry's body from the river. They didn't find any time left on his hands, so they assumed that he had been killed and his time stolen by a Dayton resident. Yeager thought Henry must have killed himself, but Raymond dismissed him, saying that it didn't matter how he died but the time that he had with him. Raymond spotted a security camera facing the bridge. Will hired a taxi service from New Greenwich. The driver stared at him, telling him that he didn't really pick up from that side of town. Will explained that he had gotten lost in Dayton. On the way to New Greenwich, he paid a lot of time to get there. When the driver asked him what he was really doing at New Greenwich, Will responded that he was there to make the people living in New Greenwich pay. As he headed into a hotel, Will and an unknown woman stared at each other. He booked a suite. Raymond and his deputies watched the video on the security camera. They found Will there but not the part where he pushed Henry into the river, so he was their main suspect. The waitress at the hotel's restaurant asked Will if he wasn't from there because of how fast he moved, since New Greenwich people are slow. He asked her about a door. She told him that it was the casino. At the casino, he was required to make a donation for non-members before he could gain entrance. Then he was directed to the poker table. The timekeepers identified Will, and Raymond told them that he had known Will's father. Yeager and Kors informed Raymond that someone was detected spending a large amount of time on their way to New Greenwich. At the casino, Will played poker with time-loaning businessman Philippe Weiss, who bet him 50 years. Will accepted, betting the same amount of time. Philippe's daughter Sylvia arrives with her bodyguard, and Will happens to recognize her from when he had seen her outside the hotel. Philippe tells Will that he agrees the time difference between the two zones is unfair, but it's part of evolution, which is survival of the fittest. This upsets Will, but he controls his emotions. Philippe adds 2 centuries to the bet, and Will bets the same amount of time, raising the winning prize to 1,100 million years. Seeing Will's time almost run out makes Sylvia nervous. Philippe shows his card, but Will's card wins the game, meaning he owns over a millennium at poker while nearly dying. Philippe congratulates him on his win, acknowledging his risk but telling him that it wasn't a risk. Philippe notices Will watching Sylvia introduce Will to Sylvia, so Sylvia invites him to a party at their house as she leaves with her dad. Will buys himself a new car that costs him a lot to drive to the party. Philippe introduces him to his wife Michelle and mother-in-law Clara, who also look 25. Sylvia sees Will all by himself, so she approaches him, and they have a conversation. Sylvia asks him what he does for a living. He responds that he hasn't thought of it yet since he has a century to decide, and he isn't in a rush. Sylvia tells him to dance with her while her dad was keeping watch on them. After dancing, Will takes her to her backyard, which faces the sea, then he convinces her to take a swim with him, though she doesn't agree at first. Raymond is informed that Will had been spotted at Weiss' mansion, so they head over there. Her dad comes looking for her, so they sneak back into the house fully dressed, and Raymond arrives at the Weiss mansion disrupting the party to arrest Will. Will is taken to Philippe's office, where Raymond questions what he was doing at New Greenwich. Will asks him if it's a crime to change time zones, to which he replies that it's not. He asks Will how he got the time on him. Will responds that he had won it through gambling and that some of it had been given to him by Henry before he committed suicide. Raymond doesn't believe Henry, who is worth thousands of years, could have killed himself. Will insists that he didn't steal the time and that if anyone is guilty of such, it would be the timekeepers. Raymond tells him that he isn't concerned with justice but with keeping time. He then tells Will that the amount of time on his hand is on the wrong person, so he confiscates all but 2 hours of Will's time, telling him that transportation would be arranged to take him back to Dayton. Will asks him why he was investigating a suicide when countless people die in Dayton. He mentions Will's father, saying he had heard the same thing from him, then he makes his exit. Will gets an opportunity which he uses to take Sylvia hostage, and he makes a run for it, taking his car as he speeds off with her. Raymond pursues them through the road, but Will loses him after almost getting hit by a truck, and Will drives off. Will asks Sylvia to lend him some time, but she refuses, asking him if he would kill her like he killed Henry. She tells him that he should let her go, but he refuses, saying she was why he wasn't dead yet. In the morning, on their way to Dayton, Fortis and his gang ambush them, making them skid off the road, flipping into the low river, causing them to go unconscious. They don't see much time on Will, thinking Will is dead, but they see Sylvia's time is a decade, which they steal, leaving her with 30 minutes. Sylvia wakes up to find her time was stolen, so she panics, asking for Will's help. He gives her some of her time. Sylvia asks Will what they were going to do, so Will replies that whatever they have to. Raymond finds their totaled car while driving by. He and his deputies assume that Will and Sylvia had been ambushed, which leaves them with minutes on their hands. They think Will and Sylvia were heading to Dayton. Raymond believes they would come to them. Will takes Sylvia to Borel's apartment in an attempt to get some time back, but his wife Greta tells him that he drank himself to death with the 10 years time Will gave him. Will tells him how sorry he was. This puts Will and Sylvia in a situation since they were seconds from timing out. Will takes Sylvia's earrings, which they pawn off across the street, getting a day each, which was less than what the earrings cost. Will calls Philippe with Raymond present, so he tells him to hand the phone to Raymond. He demands that he be paid a 1,000 years ransom to the Dayton residents by the next day in exchange for Sylvia's safe return. Raymond tells him that he is afraid for him because he was talking like his dad, and he might die like him. Will tells him that his father died in a fight, so Raymond tells him that his father's crime wasn't taking time but he was involved in dangerous things. He advises him not to make his father's mistake. Raymond relays Will's message to Philippe, who hesitates. Seeing this, his wife Michelle tells him that the amount of time is nothing, but Philippe refuses, not liking that Will wants to give it to the Dayton residents. Will takes Sylvia to his home, which he had shared with his mom. He offers her his mom's clothes to wear. He tells her about his dad, who he thinks was killed, and that his mom had timed out. They talk about when their timer started counting after their 25th birthday, with his running out in a week because of his and his mother's debt. The next day, they watch the place where the time was to be sent to, but Philippe doesn't send the time, which disappoints Sylvia, who feels her dad didn't care enough to send her ransom. Will releases Sylvia to go call her dad, but before she goes, she kisses him. Will waits for her to make her call. Philippe tells her that she was going to be rescued soon, which makes her turn towards where Will was waiting just as Raymond was trying to shoot Will, having found them. Sylvia shoots Leon in the arm, and Will gives him enough time to survive until the other timekeepers arrive. Then they drive away with Leon's car. Sylvia questions Will on giving his time to Raymond, to which he replies that Raymond wouldn't have made it before he would have been found by other timekeepers. Timekeeper Yeager picks Raymond up from Dayton, seeing that he still had time left, which surprises him. Will and Sylvia pull over a new Greenwich resident whom they rob of her time, car, and jewelry, which he gave to Sylvia to replace hers that they had pawned. They watch news of both of them being wanted, so Will tells Sylvia to go back to her life, that he would claim that he had made her do everything, but she isn't interested in going back to her life with her father, and seeing that she had shot a timekeeper, that wouldn't be possible. They share a kiss. Raymond visits Philippe at his office where he informs him about the warrant being out for Sylvia. Philippe tries to blame Will, claiming he forced Sylvia into doing all she did, but Raymond doesn't believe so. Raymond tells him not to offer her help of any sort, or he would be arresting him as well. Philippe offers to pay him a lot of time to resolve the issue, asking him how much he wants, but Raymond replies that he can't give him enough time in his lifetime. Sylvia asks Will if he got a lot of time if he was really going to give it away. He tells her that he has only ever had a day. How much would he need? He asks her how she can live with herself if people die next to her, and she replies that she would just have to close her eyes. Sylvia offers to help Will get all the time he wants. Will and Sylvia drive a truck into one of her father's time banks where they rob, and they encourage the customers to take as much time as they want, which they do. Then they both leave with a suitcase full of time capsules. They distribute the time capsules to the needy, including Borel's wife and Mia, donating time to be distributed to the residents. Raymond's boss is on his neck, asking him to handle Will and Sylvia, which he promises to do. Fortis shoots a man who had a lot of time, but he doesn't take his time fast enough before the man dies. He sees the news report of Sylvia and Will being wanted. Philippe tells his wife Michelle about what their daughter was doing to his business. She tells him that it's because he had suffocated her, and he is still suffocating them all. Sylvia and Will, who are in a motel, play cards with each other before things get intimate. But Will hears a noise, so he rushes to the window where he sees the timekeepers approach the building. They run away with Raymond hot on their heels. He keeps chasing them even after the other timekeepers had long given up. He shoots at them, and Will shoots at him back. But then Will and Sylvia manage to escape into a bus after bribing the driver with a lot of time who had recognized them. With the time capsules they had acquired, they were able to rent the whole rooms in a hotel. A guy comes into the hotel to rent a room, but he is told that the hotel is fully booked, and the guy happens to recognize Will and Sylvia. Meanwhile, Fortis goes in search of Sylvia and Will, holding some guys hostage until they give up their whereabouts, or their time would be taken from them, resulting in their death. He uses one of them as an example, taking away his time so he falls limp, dead. One of the guys who happens to have seen them agrees to take them as long as he gets some time out of it. Will and Sylvia watch news about a 10-year bounty being placed on them. Sylvia tells him that if they are caught, there is no way they won't be killed. He asks her if she regrets it, and she replies that he saved her life. Fortis's gang breaks into their suite, swiftly stopping Will from grabbing a weapon. Fortis tells Will that why the timekeepers haven't come for him is because he has boundaries. Fortis tells Will that they should arm wrestle, which Will doesn't agree to, saying that he would still be killed irrespective of the outcome. Fortis tells him that he would have to do it, or he could kill him immediately. Will asks him what would happen to Sylvia. He replies that he would take Will and Sylvia's time before handing her over to the timekeepers to get his reward. Will agrees to arm wrestle him. He ends up gaining the upper hand, thereby taking all of Fortis' time. Then he uses the gun he had stashed in his shoes to kill Fortis's men. Will and Sylvia run out of there. At the crime scene, the bodies of Fortis and his gang are brought outside. Will and Sylvia see that interest rates for time loans have been increased, which shows that all their work didn't change anything as prices were being raised faster to compensate for the extra time. This upsets Will. Sylvia tells him that they had tried their best, which only upsets him more, so Sylvia asks him how they can make a difference. Will tells Sylvia that only if they get a million-year time capsule would they be able to stand against all odds. So Sylvia suggests they surrender, which was a plan to take her dad as a hostage at his bank where they open his vault, which Sylvia guesses the passcode correctly. They steal the 1 million-year capsule from his vault. Philippe tells them that even though they give a year to 1 million people, it would only prolong their agony, which Sylvia corrects, saying it would prolong their lives. Philippe tells them that the system would be crippled if they gave the wrong zone 1 million years. Sylvia tells Philippe that they aren't meant to live forever. Philippe tells them that they might upset the first and second generation, but they shouldn't delude themselves that everyone doesn't want to live. He tells them that everyone thinks they would be the exception to become immortal and that for a few to become immortal, many must die. This upsets Will because he almost shoots Philippe, telling him that if it costs lives, no one should be immortal. Raymond gets intel that 1,000,000 years has been stolen. He knows that it's Sylvia and Will, so he chases after them, trying to make sure they don't get out of New Greenwich back to Dayton, not refilling his time due to his strong interest in catching them. He has a barricade waiting for them at the bridge to Dayton, and he instructs them to shoot Sylvia and Will, but they drive through the barricade with no bullets hitting them. Raymond fails to stop them distributing the stolen time to Dayton residents as Will hands the capsule to Mia. He chases after them to arrest them, but the crowd on the streets slows him down. He finds a different route to chase them when they try to make it to some other city. He catches up to them. Will accuses him of being from Dayton, which he agrees to, saying he had found his way out of there. Will accuses him of not wanting any other person but himself to move to New Greenwich. He doesn't make the arrest since his time runs out, making him collapse, having neglected to collect his day's salary. Will and Sylvia nearly run out of time themselves. They try giving up their time for each other until they spot Raymond's timekeeper's car at a distance, so they run to it. Will makes it there first, taking the one-day time, which is a timekeeper's salary, then he runs back to Sylvia in time to save her. TV reports show factories in Dayton shutting down as everyone has enough time to abandon their jobs. The timekeepers watch as time spreads rapidly to every region. They ask Yeager what they should do, and he orders the timekeepers to return home, dropping his gun as he leaves. Will and Sylvia progress to larger banks to steal more time capsules,